everybody, and welcome to this edition of It's Janice. That's me, your host, Janice McLean DeLoatch. And so today we are doing a special segment on insurance and pre-planning. Some might ask why, right? Um, in the day that we live in, sometimes it's important to make sure that we have everything in place in every aspect of our life: financial, work, home, also the afterlife. I know that sounds crazy, but when we come back, I'm going to introduce you to one of our guests. His name is Robert Groves, and he's from the Evans Funeral Chapel. And he's going to tell you a little bit about why it's so important for us to have a protection like that in place. So stay tuned. We'll be back, and I hope that you'll enjoy our segment on It's Janice. We'll be back. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's Janice. That's me, your host, Janice McLean DeLoatch. And I am joined with Robert Groves from Evans Funeral Chapel. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Would you tell me a little bit about yourself and the history of Evans Funeral Chapel?
I've been a licensed funeral director since 1981. I've worked here at Evans Funeral Chapel for 25 years. Evans Funeral Chapel is celebrating their 150th anniversary this year. We're still family owned and locally owned by Charles F. Evans Jr.
Would you tell me a little bit about your background, Robert?
Sure. I finished my schooling, the mortuary science program at that time, Catonsville Community College. And so in Maryland, we're required to have an associate arts degree in mortuary science. Served my apprenticeship. After the apprenticeship, we set for our national boards and then our state boards. Having completed that, then become a licensed funeral director in the state of Maryland. Career has taken me different places. For a while, I worked for the State Anatomy Board as the embalmer there, then worked for the Maryland Tissue Bank, and for the last 25 years have been working here at Evans Funeral Chapel, doing their pre-planning and informing people about the importance of why they should do advanced planning as their funeral needs.
Pre-planning. Would you tell me a little bit about what that is?
Sure. Pre-planning is the time where we give the individual opportunities to come in and to write down their wishes and desires for what type of service that they want. And they can go as far as making it as detailed as they want. And so they get to talk about the death notice, the obituary, what type of service. Do they want to have a service at church, or they even make selection of caskets. And so then they know what the cost of the funeral is at that time, and giving them the opportunity, if they would like, to prepay, and which then locks in the cost for the family. When someone is pre-planned, what it does for the family, it takes the burden from the family of having to make decisions when it's a very stressful time in their life.
Mm-hmm. How do you keep your emotions in check when you leave the office at the end of the day?
What you do as far as being a funeral director, every family that you serve it is their first funeral. And so you cannot take it home with you, but yet you have to put yourself in a place where they need your help. And one of the reasons why I chose to become a funeral director is because I wanted to help people.
Okay, we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how we talk to the younger people when we come back. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more. It's Janice, and we are shooting at the Evans Funeral Chapel, and my guest, it's Robert Groves. Stay tuned. We'll be back. Hi, and welcome back to It's Janice. I'm your host, Janice McLean DeLoatch, and I am joined again with Robert Groves, who's with the Evans Funeral Chapel in Forest Hill, Maryland. Robert is the manager of pre-need services, and so now we're going to pick up where we left off, and we left off on you taking emotions home, but I also want to talk about, you spoke about the families and it being their first funeral. So what would be the first step that someone would take when they come in after learning that a loved one has died?
The first step is that they will supply us with all the vital statistics of their loved one. We're going to need, their social security number, date of birth, place of birth, the parents' names, mother's maiden name.
Oh, it sounds like NBA. I'm sorry. Okay, right.
But they're the things that are required for us to complete a death certificate.
Okay.
And we give that list to the family when they call us, and then we set up a time. They come in, they bring that, and then we talk about what type of service that they want to have. And the most important part is to remember that really celebrating a life that's been lived. How does this service, how is it going to mirror that person that we're really celebrating their life?
Yeah, and I think that's really important. More and more you do see that, which makes you wonder why people weren't doing that long ago. It makes me wonder. I wonder about quite a few things, actually. Let me ask you, cremation versus burial. I hear that cremation's cheaper. Is it really?
It is. The thing with cremation is that you don't have a lot of the cemetery costs that are involved. But cremation is becoming more and more popular with people. But the one thing that is our job as a funeral home is to inform and educate people that with cremation, you still need to have some type of service to celebrate someone's life. It helps with closure with the family. So what we're seeing is an increase of families who will have more of a traditional service. They'll have a viewing with the body present. They'll have a service, whether it's at church or at the funeral home, and then cremation takes place. So really, cremation is not a different type of funeral, but it's a different type of disposition. Instead of burying the body is cremated.
More and more we're hearing about mass killings, mass shootings, and as much as I really even hate to talk about that right now, it is reality. That is the times that we're living in. And often they are young adults, children. I had the opportunity to do an interview with the father of Victoria Lee Soto, who was the teacher at Sandy Hook Elementary, one of the first mass murders that we had at a school. And from her father's perspective, her family was okay in terms of having funeral arrangements in place. But often, how do you talk to the younger people or the families with children who just feels like this is something that, I can wait, we'll get around to it. How do you market to the younger audience, particularly in a time where there's mass shootings and killings? It's senseless, but how do you do that?
I think what happens is that I tell families, one of the most unnatural things for a parent to do is to bury a child. And where no one wants to face that is a possibility. But throughout, no matter how young someone is, you have to think about that person has lived a life and they have touched other lives. And so there has to be a way to celebrate that life. One of the things is no one thinks they're going to die. And one of the most important things for families who have not experienced a death of a child, but I think one of the biggest things for families to do is to understand there should be some kind of life insurance in place.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because if something like this, an unfortunate school shooting or shooting at a movie theater, as we've heard and many have experienced, that is not something someone planned. When they woke up that morning, they thought they were going to return home.
Right.
But so no matter how young someone is, I think part of family planning and financial planning for family is to make sure that there's life insurance in place just in case that there is a sudden, unexpected death, whether it's natural or an act of violence.
Okay. All right, good. Now, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some of the benefits and plans that your company offers. Okay?
Okay.
All right, guys, stay tuned, and we'll be right back. Hi, and we are back with more of It's Janice, and we're continuing to talk to Robert Groves, who is with the Evans Funeral Chapel in Forest Hill, Maryland. So thank you for hanging in there with me. When we left off, we talked a little bit about people having insurance in place. So I want to continue with that and talk about Evans Funeral Chapel and pre-planning. I do know there are other companies that offer those same plans, but tell us what stands out about Evans Funeral Chapel.
Well, Evans Funeral Chapel, our history with pre-planning goes back, as I said, long, even before I came on 25 years ago. But Charlie Evans, who owns the Evans Funeral Chapel, has always been a believer in pre-planning. And so he, before it was ever popular, was out there telling people the benefits and values of pre-planning. What separates us from everyone else is one of the things is that we truly believe it is important for families to pre-plan, giving the opportunity. For the longest time, I was one of the only full-time funeral directors in the state of Maryland who was just doing pre-planning. That's how long we have believed in it. Okay. And what really separates us is that our expertise. We also offer a price guarantee, which is that is what we have chosen to do as part of the philosophy of pre-planning. When someone pre-plans and pre-funds their funeral, we give them a price guarantee that when the death takes place, the family is not going to receive a bill because they have taken care of things in advance. And and also in pre-planning, it gives us an opportunity to allow the individual to structure the type celebration that they would like to have. And we pride ourselves on working with families and giving them the opportunity to personalize that funeral.
Okay. I actually got to talk to Stacy Spar, who works here with Evans Funeral Chapel in the Forest Hill, Maryland office. Great lady. I really enjoyed talking to her. In fact, we had such a great conversation. I was like, wait a minute, I should probably be going down the road. But we talked about some really interesting things. One was the different types of burials that you could have, funerals that you could have, which I learned there is a difference between burying somebody who is Hindu versus somebody who's Chinese. I found that part very interesting. Would you just maybe give us an example of those kind of funerals that you could do?
Well, the important part is with being a funeral director, and we have to understand the different cultures. America today, we are a melting pot. And so when a family comes in and they have a cultural difference as far as the funeral, we have to learn those different customs so that the families will be served in the way that they really need to be served. There are different families and different cultures that they want to be involved completely in the cremation process, where they will they'll have a viewing of the body. They'll use our chapel They will have their priests come, and then when the service is completed, because we have our own crematory on site, the family just follows the casket right to the crematory.
Okay.
They participate in placing the body in the crematory, and that because that's part of their culture. And so we learned that so that we can serve families. And there are other cultures that will, on the way to the cemetery, we're going to want to drive by the person's home and allow the family member to go into the home, and then to come back out and make our way to the cemetery. Things that may seem different to us, but if we're going to serve, we must learn all those, and it makes it interesting as far as being able to serve the families of different cultures, and then we also have to learn what it is to maybe send someone back to their homeland, and working with embassies and things like that. But the basis of all that is that when the family calls on Evans Funeral Chapel to do their service, that we are going to do the service just the way that they want it to be done, so that they feel that their culture and their traditions have been served.
Wow, that is excellent. I'm really glad to hear that. And I'm going to say, and this is not your words, these are mine, often cultures kind of, African Americans go to African American funeral directors. Usually you have Caucasian families that stick with Caucasian funeral homes, and Asian and Indian and so on. But I think that's really a great advantage that you offer, in that you can really handle any culture that comes through your doors. Because I have to say, sometimes I feel that there are some companies that may take advantage of the fact that they think they have a built-in audience. And I know I'm probably going to be gone when I'm gone, but I would be very upset with my family if they paid way more than they had to just because they thought that was the best place to go, as opposed to really finding somebody who would give them what they needed. So those are my words, and I just wanted to interject that, but that's great. When we come back, we're going to talk about benefits, and I'm going to introduce you to Stacy Spar. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more of It's Janice. I am joined with Stacy Spar. Hi, Stacy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, tell me a little bit about your title at Evans Funeral Chapel.
I am a funeral director and also an advanced funeral planner.
Okay.
So I am now focusing on pre-planning with families.
Tell me how you became involved with becoming a funeral director.
Back in 2005, my sister asked me to go to college with her. And I had already had a communications degree from Village Ely College. So I asked her, what did she want to go to school for? I was definitely game to do anything to help her go to college her first time. Mm-hmm. This is my older sister. And
let me just say real quick, for those of you who don't know, it's now Stevenson University, but Stacy and I are part of that really cool club of when it was Village Ely. So yeah. All right.
Mm-hmm. Always Village Ely.
Mm-hmm.
But she wanted to go to college, and I asked her what she wanted to go to school for, and she said mortuary science. In my head, I'm thinking, is she crazy? Or what is drawing her to this? Right. And she then finally shared a story with me about an experience she had when she was 16. She had equine encephalitis, was bit by a mosquito that actually was infected, kind of like West Nile is now for us. And the doctors at Johns Hopkins, where she was being treated, told her she may want to plan her own funeral because they weren't sure she would survive because there were no cases at the time surviving.
Wow, that's encouraging.
Yes. So
Okay.
that stuck with her.
Yeah.
And finally, after having a daughter, she decided she wanted to go back to school. She'd never been able to make it to college, and I was definitely game and ready to support her. So we actually joined Catonsville Community College together and pursued the mortuary science degree together. And unfortunately, she became disabled with other medical issues that she did not progress forward with becoming a funeral director, but she did earn everything that she needed to have the degree and actually pass the national test.
Okay.
So that was something she was very proud of, and I'm proud for her doing. But I was the one that became the funeral director in the family.
Okay.
So she actually led me to my my career, my niche, and a new passion that I have in my life that I've been doing now for 10 years.
Now, tell me a little bit about, you have a presentation that you guys do on your pre-planning.
Uh-huh.
Would you just walk me through a little bit of that presentation, if you don't mind
Sure.
sharing that today?
With bringing me onto the pre-need side of funeral planning, my main goal is to try and help and educate families and to offer maybe a better setting than coming into the funeral home. So we will provide a lunch and learn presentation where we will go to a local restaurant to the areas of our funeral homes and try to offer a setting where the families will feel comfortable and be able to ask the questions that they wish and actually learn a little bit before actually stepping into the funeral home. With that presentation, we offer information and ways for them to understand why it is important to pre-plan.
Absolutely, and I think that was really a good way. It's really a good way for you to do it. I don't think anybody wants to turn down a free lunch. Sometimes people do, depending on where you're eating. That could be another whole topic
Yes.
there. We won't go there. But I think it's really a good way to reach people because sometimes it is kind of daunting when you're walking into a funeral home or and this one is actually pretty light and it's decorated light. It feels easy. Some funeral homes feel kind of heavy. So, what kind of success have you had with your program with the Lunch and Learn?
We've held a few since I've come onto the side of the program, and we've been stepping it up with information since I've met with you, and just trying to get an impact on people. And my first question that I always ask is, if you were to pass away today, who would be the person that would be making your funeral arrangements?
Yeah, I remember you asked me that same question, and I had to think about it. And I have extensive family and some pretty cool friends. But then, I don't know. It's really a good question because maybe people don't know us as well as they think they do. Of course, when you're gone, you're gone. I don't know if it really matters, but I'm going to be fly even in the afterlife. I just want to tell you that. Okay. So that's good. So you are getting the information out more. How do you get the 22-year-old or the 25-year-old, the young couple who doesn't feel like this is important for them right now? And I asked the same question to Robert earlier, but I want to ask you again, for one, from a female perspective, and that's no bias, because sometimes we do see things a little bit differently based on gender. So
a lot of people feel a little bit more comfortable with a female, knowing that we are the natural comforter in the families. I myself am in my 30s. My husband is in his 50s. So when we're talking to the different generations and showing the importance, we do like to talk about the financial side, that we can guarantee pricing. So if you were to make these prepayments in the plan, that it would be done and settled and out of the way and a worry out of your mind. It is a little harder to find the younger generation ready to consider that. But if they are dealing with the passing of a parent, it does bring reality to the forefront and makes them actually consider this. I am considering doing this for myself just to make it easy for my husband. If anything were to happen to me, he thinks he's going to be the one to go first, and I tell him you never get to pick.
It's not always getting
No.
right. It doesn't always work like that,
No.
right? And this is one of the reasons why I keep talking about the younger people. And I know people are like, why does she keep saying that? Because I think they are totally lost with it. They just really don't get it.
Well, right now we're having such an epidemic with heroin abuse.
That's another thing that's really big right now. Yeah.
So it's very hard to try and reach the younger generation, even though I still fit in that generation.
Mhm.
But just looking at what I do for a living and going home every day and seeing my parents that live with me and my husband, I am grateful for every day.
Right.
And you never know when it's your time. And it doesn't matter what your age is. It could be an infant or someone in 100 years
Right,
old.
yeah.
You really want to reach everyone and at least educate them on the importance and then guide them if they want to make that step.
Yeah, and I actually sat through the presentation with Evans Funeral Chapel, with Robert and Stacy, and yeah, you guys they have an amazing staff, very professional, very courteous. I am not getting paid for this. Let me just clear that up for everybody. And I know that you should be professional. This is what you do, but I've come across some that were not, so I will not name any names on that. But this is a thought that I have for everybody in this industry. When we're talking about the younger people again, we also know that they're dealing with limited budgets and limited finances, and even people that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s have the same issue. Maybe there is a product that would be available for them. So that could be some future thought.
Oh, definitely. We can even discuss maybe just cost affordability. If they can only afford so much a month to put aside for this, there are ways to do that. So there are a lot of options and a lot of information we can provide. And we can have appointments with couples, people individually. We can do that in the comfort of their own home if that makes them more comfortable than coming to the funeral home. But we just want to be able to understand where they're coming from and what their situation is and our best way to be able to help them individually.
Wow. Well, thank you for joining me. I am so glad that I actually got the chance to talk with Robert and Stacy today, and they allowed us to come out and shoot our segment here. If people want to find more information, again, what's your website?
Our website is evansfuneralchapel.com, or they can reach us by our email address, which is belair@evansfuneralchapel.com.